You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets on Media Network.
All right, you're on The Arms Room with Glenn.
And John.
Oh my gosh, Mason, you're killing me.
Too much cowbell.
Way too much cowbell. I sound like I'm in a cave again, Mason. All right.
Oh my God.
There's this thing called a mic test. You can do it before a show starts.
Is that better, Your Majesty?
All right, so we've got Mason. No video today, Mason.
No video.
I'm gonna blame.
Don't pin it on me.
I'm gonna blame you for that.
I think there is video. I think it's just of me.
Oh, that's
creepy.
Because our awesome Special Forces truck driver guy might have screwed me on this one.
All right. Well, no video today, but if there was video, we could show you Mason's American flag T-shirt.
I like America.
Just makes me want to punch kittens.
Oh, well, that's not very nice at all. Good Lord.
All right. So, John, what did you do this weekend, man?
What did I do this weekend? Not a lot of anything. I tried to put 2 child seats on the backs of bicycles. Yeah, I can take apart a bomb. I cannot put a child seat on a bicycle. I finally got that done. Went to a party at a friend of mine's house, and then went grocery shopping.
Yeah, what happened at that party, John?
Let's not talk about that on the air.
All right.
I learned a lesson.
Yes, you did. I hope it's a lesson you'll never forget.
Never.
And that was the second time you got crabs.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, you know.
So I had a pretty good weekend. I went
glad.
camping all weekend.
Nice.
It was awesome. I got to go camping with my wife for the first time in several years.
Just you and the wife?
Just me and the wife. The kids were home.
Woo.
It was awesome.
I bet.
And then I took the boy out hunting. We did some turkey hunting. It was less turkey hunting and more walking around the forest. We went to this turkey youth camp, which was a great camp. It was put on by Mingus Mountain Longbeards, which was a really great organization. They did a really good job of putting the hunt together, so kudos to them. But there was there was no turkeys, man. There was like 50 kids there probably, you know, because all youth hunt, and 3 turkeys came back to camp.
Wow.
And 2 of them were just like surprise turkeys, like they were just walking back to their truck and there was turkeys. But we did see a hen turkey, but you can't shoot the hens, got to shoot only the toms. But we did call in some predators because that's what I'm good at. So anytime I'm doing something I'm not good at, I just resort back to what I'm good at, and it works, and I'm happy.
Nice.
So yeah, we did do some of that. So that was good. But it was great, man. It was a beautiful weekend. It was
the weather was really nice.
Oh, it was perfect weather. Perfect weather. So so that's about it. So what's going on in recent news? I read a report that said 52% of the 770,000 soldiers interviewed in the Army said they are dissatisfied with their jobs and they don't expect anything good to happen to them.
I'd say that.
And the rest of them lied.
Yeah.
46% of them lied, and the other 2% are MPs.
Yeah.
So
another zinger from Glenn Stilson.
That's right. That's right. No relief for you, sir. So what else is going on? Anything else happened?
I'm trying to find out.
This isn't like new news, but they did finally reverse the stupid tattoo policy.
Oh,
excellent. They did.
And it's official. They've even released a new 670-1, which takes it back to the original policy, which is basically as long as it doesn't show in your uniform, you're good.
Which is how it should have always been in the first place.
No neck, no face.
Surprise, the bearded up, tatted out guys are the guys you want.
Yeah, exactly.
In the military. Yeah. Well, shocking. All of us knew that, of course. I remember when it first came out, it was pretty ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Many tears were wept. Was the 20th yesterday, the 20th anniversary or something like that of the Oklahoma City bombing? And today starts the Boston Marathon, correct? 1 million people watching on the sidelines, 30,000 competitors in the Boston Marathon, having just concluded finally the Boston Marathon bombing trials, which shockingly, that guy was guilty. Oh my gosh.
What?
Yeah,
No.
I know. It's like we didn't know that.
Well, I don't
Way
think
back
there was
when.
never a question of his guilt, from what I heard.
There's that ridiculously long,
Well,
drawn out justice program.
Technically, in America, there's always a question of someone's guilt.
Yeah, that's right.
Even if you see them doing it, we still have to go through the process.
That is true. What a disappointment.
America.
Sometimes.
What else? The Oklahoma City bomb. I remember that was crazy. There
was a terrorist attack in Somalia
baby.
that killed 7 UN employees.
Get out of town. A terrorist smack in Somalia. A terrorist smack.
Smack him.
A terrorist attack in Somalia.
Yeah,
Oh
El
my
Shabaab
gosh.
is who did it.
Oh well.
I'm just trying to find things. Man.
Don't just look up random stuff, Mason. We're talking about important things.
Find something relative.
That's a bummer for those UN folks, but not shocking over in Somalia.
Not really.
Which is actually kind of interesting. We'll leave on that note because we want to get to our guest today, who unfortunately you can't see his glowing face and wonderful beard because we have no
nice beard.
freaking camera.
No,
Adam.
wait, what? You said there's no camera?
I did say there was no camera. What is that? I am number one, Adam. You are correct.
Adam
That's not
says
very
there's no camera,
professional.
but I'm pretty sure people can see my face.
I'm
like 90% sure that my face is still in the camera.
Oh, Adam says no, and you know what Adam says is definitely the truth.
Well, let's ask some people that watch the show.
All right.
Hey, Jason.
hey, since you're out there, we know for sure. All right, so we're gonna today in the studio we're gonna talk to Scott, who is from GrayWolfSurvival.com. Scott's got a lot of expertise and experience in the background of foreign travel and other such related activities. And so we kind of put a title up on our show schedule that said travel safety and how to avoid a black bag over your head, which is really, I think, look, for me personally, I didn't travel internationally, recreationally or anything like that. So when I go places, like I remember going to Mexico as a kid, growing up in the Southwest. I went to Mexico as a kid, and we hung out there a lot. And it was great, and we didn't ever worry about safety. We would go down there just as teenagers. And nowadays, it's definitely not really something I'm interested in doing.
No.
Not nearly as much as I was before.
There's actually most of Mexico's on the no-go list for military personnel as well.
There you go. So, Scott, why don't you tell us a little, however much you want to tell us about yourself and kind of why you know so much about this.
Well, I joined the Army in 1984 and then got out in 94 and came back in after 9/11 and been in ever since then. Just now I'm inactive, but traveled to different countries, worked for embassies, worked for different combatant commanders, a lot on threat vulnerability assessments and route assessments and OPSEC and PERSEC and that kind of stuff.
If you were going to say that there's, based on just all the time you saw, if you were going to say there's one thing that most people do when they travel, be they military personnel, civilian, whatever, government officials, what do you think the number one mistake people are making when they're traveling to foreign countries?
They don't research. You got to know your area. Try to do as much area familiarization online or with people that have been there before. And then contact the embassy once you get there. Find some locals that you trust and have them bring you around the country and show you where to go, where not to go. Have a plan of what you're going to do and what you're not going to do and who's going to know who knows where you're at. You can't just go. Let somebody know at least where you're going to be and when you're supposed to be back, that kind of stuff.
Now, what if I'm going to do an area familiarization? What am I looking for? I mean, what are some of the things specifically that I'm looking to learn about the area? What do I want to know?
The biggest are going to be the go-to areas and the no-go areas. So you want to know like where the police station is, where all the medical facilities are, where places you could run to if you had to. But mostly it's not just worrying about being kidnapped. It could be like you could just get stabbed accidentally or something, fall out of a car or some kind of, because there's a lot of crazy drivers over there. But and then also know where the no-go areas and the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures of the bad guys. Like we had in Africa, there was a group in a shopping area in this one country where what they would do is walk up behind you with a razor blade and just slit the back of your pants, which would leave you bleeding, but your wallet would then fall out and then they would run. So you'd have to know to look for that in that particular country.
That's a terrible tactic.
That's
That's awful. So what are some of the other things, other than area familiarization? Like if I was going to travel to a country, and for me specifically, I have kids, right? So I've got my wife, I've got my kids. I want to travel to whatever. Let's say even like a place that's definitely be non-hostile. Like I just want to go to Europe, and I want to go to England, and I want to go tour World War II battle sites or something like that. What are some of the things I'm looking to do to be safe, to go to a country that I know is probably not incredibly hostile, other than area familiarization, because it's still important to know what to go, what's a no-go, what are the TTPs of the bad guys, stuff like that. What are some of the other things I'm looking to do, especially when I'm traveling with a group, be they family, friends, whatever?
Well, petty crime is the biggest thing you really have to worry about in most of the places that you're going to travel, especially like Europe. And it's not usually you're going to be kidnapped, but they're going to come and take your wallet, take your purse or whatever. So you really have to watch. They work in teams. So if somebody comes up and kind of like bumps into you accidentally, it might not be an accident, and you got to look for somebody else that's stepping in to take your bag or whatever. Always put your hands on your bags. If you're going to be sitting there at a table and you have a purse, just wrap the handle of the purse or whatever underneath the table leg, so you have to grab the table to leave, those kind of things. But make sure you have all your documentation of actually make sure each person in the group has the phone number of everybody else that's in the group on them, and like the police phone number and that kind of stuff, so that if they get separated, they know exactly who to call. They don't have to look for it.
Now, I know that if everyone else is listening to this show, I'm sure has probably seen the movie Taken, which is a great movie. Unfortunately, Liam Neeson is a douchebag. But other than that, right, in real life, he's a total jerk. But in the movie,
there we go, offending more people.
I don't care. If you're a Liam Neeson fan, check the dude out. He's
going to kick this door down, Glenn.
Bring it on, dude. Him and freaking Sonny Pazzigas can work together. I'll take them both out. All right. So Liam Neeson's a good actor, but he's pretty anti-gun and things like that, which is ironic. Looking at all of his movies.
A little anti-freedom.
Yeah, a little anti-freedom. But anyways, good actor. But the movie is pretty good, and it kind of chronicles his daughter being taken. She's overseas. She gets taken by this kind of sex slave type ring. And he realized, his friend said, hey, you got 48 hours or something like that to get her back before she's going to be gone forever into some terrible foreign country. And so he, utilizes his unique skill set based on his, very colorful background. They never tell you exactly what he did. He's some kind of spook or something like that. But
he's probably an MP.
Probably. That's Jack Reacher, and that movie was all not true.
So horrible. Such a horrible movie.
If Tom Cruise is among your ranks, go for it, buddy.
Oh,
so,
well, they are about the same size.
That's true.
He is a tiny man.
He is. So a movie like that Taken, what's the reality of something like that?
Well, that's real. I mean, that sex traffic thingy for girls that travel by themselves. It's a serious threat in some countries. You really have to watch, especially if you're going to bars and stuff and getting drinks. You have to watch your drink. Like, I don't ever walk anywhere. If I go to a bar in a foreign country, or even actually in a city here in the United States, like, I'll usually get like a beer bottle, and I keep my finger in the hole of the beer bottle. So in other words, there's nobody that somebody could, because what they do sometimes is when you're not looking, it's just walk by and drop something in your drink. So you just have to make sure you have that covered. Otherwise, if you have a glass, just keep your hand on top of the glass. But don't ever let anybody bring you a drink and they just hand it to you unless you know them, like, and not like a local know them, like you know them from home or whatever, family or something.
All right. So if someone was taken, I mean, is that a realistic standpoint where 48 hours? I mean, what would the average person who doesn't have, the guy in Liam Neeson's character in Taken with that kind of background, what is the reality of, do you think, just based on what you know and your experience of recovering someone that's been kidnapped in a foreign country?
Well, I'd never worked in this particular area, and anything that would happen afterwards, it's all theoretical. But I know the longer it takes for somebody to get started tracking where you're at and who has you and everything, the harder it's going to be, because the farther they get, there's multiple variations of different directions they could go in different countries. They could get on an airplane and then they're just gone. So really, it is immediately you have to find them. But what I don't understand is why he didn't grab his former CIA team that he had from home and have them go with him. Right. I mean, geez.
He goes,
that doesn't
dude.
make good Hollywood.
Yeah.
One guy has to do it for it to be a good movie.
Hollywood and reality, man. They don't get along. So let's talk a little bit about, you kind of mentioned it briefly, OPSEC, PERSEC, stuff like that. obviously, I think traveling alone is a pretty terrible idea. If you don't know any locals very, very well, like known them all your life kind of thing, or you're not taking somebody with you that you've known very, very well, then traveling alone in really any foreign country is a bad idea, you know, because I think I don't remember where his daughter was in that movie, but France. Yeah, France, yes. I mean, she wasn't in like a hostile nation, so to speak. And
if we're being honest with ourselves, there are even places in the U.S. that you shouldn't travel alone.
Well, you know, I actually read when the Super Bowl came here to Arizona, I read a pretty interesting article about the sex trafficking in America, because things like the Super Bowl are a huge profit opportunity for them. And so I read this very interesting article about how big of a thing it is even here in America. So, you know, certainly any of these things we're talking about are also important really here in the States, but, you know, specifically overseas. So from an OPSEC standpoint or operational security, what are some of the things that people really need to be careful of when they're about to travel overseas?
Well, there's actually a few different things. One of the things I got to worry about is their stuff at home. Like for instance, if you take your car to the airport and put it in long-term parking, they're going to know, if somebody comes to your car, they're going to know that you're not home and you're not going to be home for a long time. So if you have like your old bills that are in there and your garage door opener, they know your address and they can get into your house most likely. I mean, even if you lock your inner door, all they have to do is close the garage door. And
they got all day.
Yeah, they got all day to mess with the locker. Just bang the door in and nobody's going to hear anything.
Okay.
But then when you're traveling, you know, a lot of the things you got to worry about is it's really just demeanor. If you look like a target, you're going to trigger that instinct for those guys that like to prey on people like that. So if you're walking around looking at your cell phone, you know, texting or whatever, people are going to automatically think that you're a target. They're going to hone right in on you. Same thing with having earphones in. So, like if you go to Starbucks and you see somebody that's working on the computer and another person's working on the computer with their earphones, you know that you're probably not going to approach that particular person because they're just not paying attention. So where you walk, how fast you walk. If you walk like you have a purpose, just like they teach you in the military, you're less likely to be a target because you just don't trigger the same instincts.
So Sergeant Major's not going to be as likely to come and find you to do some detail.
If you're not walking with a purpose, Madge is going to find you. So walk with a purpose. That's good. Don't travel alone. You know, be careful about the information you're putting in your vehicle. I would definitely say, like, it's something we've talked about on the show before, where people post it all over social media.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I'm going to France for 2 weeks. It's a better idea to say, hey, I just got back from France, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm going to France. And then, you know, on your social media pages, you're posting all these pictures. Hey, here I am at the Eiffel Tower. Here I am. Well, then people who follow you or who have access to your account know for a fact you're not home if you're posting pictures from Eiffel Tower as opposed to posting them afterwards. And we see a lot of that. You know, I even see it on Facebook where people are like, hey, I'm having lunch here today. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, if I wanted to come and hurt you for whatever reason, I have a vendetta or something, boom, I know where you're at.
And or that show we had a while ago where it was the stickers people put on their vehicles.
Yeah.
Like leaving it in the car park. If you have your sticker that says, I have guns, come and take them, this and that over my dead body, then, okay, well, if I want to steal guns, I'm going to this guy's house.
Here's the vehicle. I know it's in long-term storage. It's going to be here for at least another day or two. And, you know, here's the address. Here's the garage door clicker. You know, navigation units. People leave their navigation units in there and they leave their home location marked directly to their address. It's like, you know, if I'm going to mark a home location, it's going to be the gas station close to my house. You know, I can find my way from there. You know what I mean? It's going to be to a location close to my house, but not right on top of my house. So I think that's certainly something to think about from your stuff at home thing. And then kind of going overseas, one of the things we were kind of joking about before the show was Mason's very American flag shirt, right? So is that the kind of thing, and I mean, again, never having traveled recreationally or touristy overseas, is that the kind of thing that's going to draw unnecessary attention to me?
You can. I mean, it's not as bad sometimes as what they show in Hollywood and in the news and everything, but obviously you're now separating yourself. You're not going to see somebody typically that's from another country that's going to be wearing an American flag. So, you know, they're going to assume that you're not local, for one, and you probably have money, for two. So that kind of steps you out or stands you out.
You're probably American.
You're probably American. Yeah, with the giant American flag on your shirt. So how you walk, how you act, how you dress, the people you interact with.
And it's what you wear too. You know,
what you wear.
If you're going into like an industrial area and you're like dressed up in a real fancy clothes, obviously you're going to stand out and you're going to look like you have money. So you don't want to do that. Wearing a fancy watch, pulling out your wallet and flashing your cash, those kind of things. I mean, obviously, if they see the money, or even if you're pulling out your wallet and the fact that you're pulling out your wallet, it's going to trigger somebody to think that you're going to be a target.
So we're really looking at, from an overall perspective, if I'm traveling overseas, it's got to be based on I have to blend in.
Yeah, just try not to be noticed. The whole thing is you're not trying to be someone else. You're not wearing a disguise. You're just trying to, when somebody scans the room looking for a target of opportunity, they just scan right past you and look for somebody else.
And that's going to come from, as you first mentioned, my knowledge of the area, how people are, how people dress,
the customs,
how they act, what they do. You know, if I'm the guy who, give me an example of like a custom that you encountered overseas that we definitely wouldn't do here in America, but if we didn't do over there, we'd stand out.
Well, taking a picture of a mosque for one thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Personal
don't
space.
do that.
Okay.
Personal space is a big deal in a lot of other countries. I've spent a minute or two in the Middle East and other various countries around the world. And, you know, it's like, this is normal space from us, about an arm's distance. But over there, if you try to maintain that distance, it can be seen as disrespectful, depending on what you're talking about, depending on who you're dealing with.
Especially if you're in a country that has a much wider space, like some Asian countries, where now you're aggressive if you're trying to get into your comfort zone, because now you're in their space. It's like getting right in somebody's face.
Interesting. All right. So we really got to research the different areas we're going into. We got to know the customs. We got to know how they're going to act. We got to dress appropriately. We got to act appropriately. We got to be careful about what we tell people and what we demonstrate, not only here at home, and how long we're going to be gone to protect our things here, but also when we're overseas and how people are going to see us there based on pulling out wallets and fancy watches and all that kind of stuff. So we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue on this topic. I want to get your opinion on escape and evasion, and I have a reason to ask that question. So we're going to come right back after this break. You're listening to The Arms Room.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Veterans served us, now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsofnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help.
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets On Media Network.
All right, you're back on The Arms Room with Glenn.
And John.
And John.
Oh, sorry.
She makes
Sorry.
Christmas guy. We don't have a freaking camera, so I feel
I
like
know,
we got to
it's weird.
introduce ourselves again.
Sorry.
All right. And Mason. I saw you try to go for the mic.
No.
And Mason. All right.
And our guest.
Always
And our guest.
Mason.
And our guest, Scott, from GrayWolfSurvival.com. And that is Gray with an A.
It's both, but
you,
it's A.
You have a redirect on the other one, too. Good thinking. Because if you're like me, I
Oh, he
misspell
knows his
stuff.
business.
He does. I know my business. GrayWolfSurvival.com. Check it out. There's a lot of really great articles on there. I got introduced to you, whatever that was, 6-8 months ago, a year ago, whatever it was. And I've enjoyed reading a lot of your articles. Great stuff, and it's always nice to read a blog that comes from experience.
Yeah, that's not just BS. That someone's
As
on
opposed to
YouTube.
someone like, let me show you let me tell you about these things that I know because I read a book one time, and I'll tell you about all the stuff I know from that book. So it's nice to read a blog that's really, really good experience. So I appreciate that. We were talking about traveling overseas and traveling safely when we go overseas. And part of what we covered were things like, not traveling alone, or if you're going to travel alone, have someone everywhere you go that you know very, very well. Watching your drinks at places, whether they be alcoholic or non, watching your drinks and make sure someone's not slipping something in there, because this may not be, they're going to, slip a roofie in there and rape you or something. It could be they're just going to take you somewhere and rob you or hold you for ransom or whatever, cut your head off, right? Something terrible like that. So we talked about how you dress, how you act, the things you put on social media, the stuff you tell people, where you're going and how you're, when you're going to be there. Just kind of blending in overall, knowing the customs, knowing the local stuff, doing your research appropriately on the area, kind of due diligence in every place I'm going to go. How do I not stand out? And I kind of a funny story was brought to my mind. I have a very good friend. He and his entire family, wife and all kids, are all tall, skinny, white, as a driven snow
Yes,
type
very
white
white.
people with like blonde hair, right? And they recently went to China, and people were like taking photos of his family. It was like starting to creep him out. Like that, not tourists. The Chinese people were taking photos of his family because they were just.
Oh, it's a Clint Eastwood.
I mean, they're all 6 foot tall, and they're all white and they're all blonde haired, and they just really, really stand out. Now, unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot he could do.
Yeah, there's not much
he
you can
could
do
do
about
about that in China, I don't think. But the point is like he stood out. They stood out so much everywhere they went. And it kind of got me thinking. We were talking just about like, you could, I think sometimes people who aren't 6 feet tall, white, blonde hair can still stand out in countries where they shouldn't be just because of how they act, how they dress, such like that. So one of the things I want to talk about a little bit was E&E, or escape and evasion, and the reality of that. I mean, do you think the average person who's going to travel, how much time do they need to spend on being concerned about what if I get kidnapped? Do I need to sew handcuff keys into the back belt of my trousers, or is that the kind of stuff people need to be worried about?
Now, what you really should be focusing on is like having an itinerary and let somebody know what your itinerary is. If you're going to go to a foreign country, register with the embassy so that they know you're in the country and how long you're going to be, where your hotel is. Have a friend that's going to know like where you're going to be hanging out, what restaurants, that kind of stuff. So if something does happen, at least they know where to start. And then just like in police training, a lot of times they'll have you when you go check out a car, you'll touch the car to get your fingerprints on the car. So that way later on, if they take that vehicle in, they know that at least you were at that vehicle. So if you're going to be taken, try to leave some kind of trail. But they got to start from somewhere, and that's how they, and also if you're in a country and you haven't talked to anybody in a week, and now they're starting to get worried, you're gone for a week now already.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you check in, I mean, just like when you're on a convoy, once you hit a certain area, you call in and say, hey, I'm at this area. Just do that. I mean, even if it is on Facebook, just don't say that you're in a freaking, this country, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Have some kind of code word or whatever.
Hey, man, everything's going to plan, Yeah.
So as far as like escape and evasion techniques, I think prevention, like so many other things, prevention is probably a better cure than trying to figure out what to do afterwards.
Yeah, obviously there's a million scenarios, but if you get kidnapped and let's say they take you out into the middle of the woods, then what? Even if you do get away from them, what are you going to do?
You're in the middle of the woods in some foreign country, or the middle of the desert in some foreign country.
Right. Nowhere to go. You don't have any survival gear with you. And now you're just out of the frying pan into the fire. So it really is prevention. But I mean, obviously it certainly doesn't hurt to learn those kind of things. I learned how to pick locks and that kind of stuff, but I suck at it. It's really hard because picking a lock in your lap is one thing, and picking a lock when you're actually handcuffed, especially if they do it right, you're not going to pick that lock.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
not going to be able to reach it.
that's the thing. I mean, normally they're going to turn the port inbound anyway, so there's really no.
Yeah, they're going to put your wrists on the outside and back behind you, and you're just not going to be able to get to that kind of.
Yeah.
Unless you're a contortionist or you're skinny like him, where you can just twist your wrist around and bring it out in front of you.
Flip
Because
'em out.
there's ways you can break handcuffs.
I can break these cuffs.
So it doesn't hurt to learn that kind of stuff. You know how to pick it with like a paper clip and that kind of stuff. It's just not that difficult to do if you know how to practice like 1,000 times.
Mhm. But it's got to be one of those skills, because I see all these things like covert handcuff keys that are sold, and they're small little black covert handcuff keys, and you're supposed to keep them in various places, on your body. And then, I see like those lock picking credit card things. You've probably seen those, right? It's like a little thin credit card, a little small metal tool sets. And, it seems like that's kind of a market, where they're trying to sell people stuff. But again, that's not really my realm of experience. And so my instant reaction to it is that's nonsense, right? It just doesn't seem like it probably make a lot of sense. But, from just someone maybe who has a little more experience with it, are those the kind of things people even need to consider owning ever?
Not usually. I mean, unless because if it's that risky that you're going to that kind of a country, why are you going there?
Right. If it's not work related or something.
Yeah, and if it's work related, then they should send you to SEER school or something.
Right. So I have a question that's a little bit more maybe on a serious note, but I'm curious. And again, not having been in the situations, I try never to like Monday morning quarterback anybody, because that's just, if I wasn't there, it's hard to say why such and such happened. But overseas, when we've got these contractors or aid workers or journalists who are getting captured, they're being tortured in one way or another. You see them on TV sometimes denouncing America and all that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily think that's what they want to say, but obviously they're being coerced into doing that. And then, it all typically culminates these days in, a black bag over the head and, a knife to the throat, and they're chopping someone's head off, a dull knife to the throat, and they're chopping someone's head off. And I always just thought to myself, man, I don't want to say anything about anybody that's happened to, because I wasn't there. I don't know what they were feeling, what they'd been through, but I always just thought based on me, and if I was there and if I was in the same shape I'm in today and all that, I just couldn't let that happen. You know what I mean? I'd rather run away and be shot on the run or something than sat there and have my head sawed off with a dull knife. So is there some kind of psychology that goes into that, do you think? I mean, why don't more people who get kidnapped, taken in foreign countries, why don't you think they fight back more?
Yeah, that one I don't know. Because I don't know how many times I've seen somebody just sit there and while they get shot. I don't understand why they're not fighting, but I mean, I've never been kidnapped, so I don't really know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, dude, if you're gonna get shot, just
fight.
It's coming. You know what I mean? At least
take one of them out with you.
At least at least exactly. If I can
If you're alone with a black hood on your face and some guy with a knife comes out, what do you think's gonna happen?
Now I do have to say that, like, as far as the lock picking and stuff, that's pretty much the only real situation where you should be considering picking your lock and trying to escape. I mean, otherwise you really need to try to set it up so that somebody's going to come and get you, and you need to try to identify yourself, or actually have him identify with you. So make sure that you let him know your name, and if you have kids names, that kind of stuff, and try to make a one-on-one connection so that you're not just the kidnapped victim, but you're Glenn, and this is where you went to school, and this is what you like, and kind of music you like, and that kind of stuff.
You can use the psychology on them, and you can use it back on the bad guys.
Right. That's what you need to do is try to make it so that they see you as a person. So they're going to be more likely to take care of you instead of just seeing you as some kind of piece of meat or whatever. And you shouldn't be trying to escape unless you really know what you're doing, or you damn sure know that you're going to actually escape, because if it doesn't work, and it most likely is not going to work, it's just going to make it worse.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. I mean, you've got someone's going to try to escape, and it's just going to piss them off that much more. So if you've made that connection, you might have just damaged it.
You also have to look at how these types of things take place. Like, you've got these aid workers who are generally speaking fairly idealistic people, and they expect the best out of everybody. So when they get in these bad situations, they just keep hoping. And as we all know, hope's not a plan until things go completely awry, and then now they're on the bad side of what happened. So, I mean, them not fighting back kind of makes sense to me, but
I never really looked at it from that perspective. I think that's a really good point.
I
You
mean,
mean all human beings aren't good?
no.
What?
Well, did you guys see that that thing we posted up on the Arms Room Facebook page last week?
The lion,
the
face
lion
covered
with the
in
face covered in blood.
Yes.
I got that. I got that stuff you just can't teach. You know what I mean? I think that's part of it too. You know what I mean? Is that it's just there's a certain. I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective. Journalists, aid workers. These are probably people who are like, hey, I can talk my way out of this. If I'm nice enough, if I'm kind enough.
Right.
If I'm,
And then you look at the situation of those military contractors. Some of these guys are, I mean, they're legit dudes, and some of those dudes were truck drivers and stuff. But you can still only fight so many people at one time.
Yeah.
You can only put up so much of a fight when there's 50 dudes and there's like 5 of you.
Yeah.
Well, and if they've had you up for 2 or 3 days and dragging it around, and they haven't been feeding you, and you're dehydrated and stuff and scared and have no idea where to go next or whatever, sometimes you just lock up.
Well, and that's what I said. That's why I try never to Monday morning quarterback anybody, and I try to say like, hey, I'm not there based on my situation and how I am right now and the condition I'm in right now, which is fit and healthy and all that. Okay, yeah, I can fight back, but drag me around in a concrete cell with a black hood over my head for 3-4 days and beat me randomly and waterboard me and whatever else you want to do. Pull my fingernails out or something like that. Yeah, by day 4, I might be a little diminished. You know what I mean? Might be a little less likely to put up a fight. And I guess that, again, that's probably a lot of what happens too. Add into that personality, mentality, training, and stuff like that, and you may find yourself with someone who's just probably not going to put up much of a fight, which is interesting. Yeah. Now, how if
I got one.
Go ahead.
So today's day and age, there's obviously terrorist threats in pretty much every country we go to, and they're always targeting these large groups and these like the public transportation systems and stuff like that and you talk about knowing the area that you're in, and that's, if you can get there and find a local that you can talk to, talk to them, hey, what's normal in this area? Say you're going to Paris and you're going to go to like one of the big markets or something, hey, what are normally the busy hours? When does it look like a ghost town? Like that type of stuff. I mean, is that something that people should really, really put some effort into trying to figure out, so that way they'll know, okay, well, this is what's normal. This is the trash day, so I'll know there's going to be a bunch of trash out on the streets, or, I mean, stuff like that, like normal stuff that happens in these cities that you travel to. I mean, is this that information you should try to get out of people before you go to these places?
There's so many different countries and so many different things. That's a kind of a big question.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, like I went to Kazakhstan a couple of years ago as part of a National Guard exchange program, and we got there and we were linked up with part of their military guys, and they would tell us, hey, if you guys are going to go to this market, make sure one of us are with you, or if you guys want to go to this place, in the evenings, this place is okay. Well, these are the normal things that you're going to see. If you see something other than this, you should probably go ahead and leave.
Well, and that goes back to the TTPs of the bad guys too. If you have somebody, like in some areas, you don't want to, it's like in big cities in the United States, you don't want to stop at a stop sign in some areas. You just want to blow right through it. Because if you stop at that particular area, that's when they're going to stop, come out and break your window and try to grab you or whatever, get in your car and take whatever you're driving, or take you or your kid or whatever. So that kind of thing you definitely want to know. What is the typical crimes of, and the embassy is usually pretty good for getting that kind of information. At least start there. You should always visit the embassy anyways. Register that you're going to be there, where you're going to be at, how long you're going to be there, and then they usually have a pamphlet, something like different crime things that have happened in the area. Sometimes the website will have that kind of information too.
So how do you get in contact with the embassy at the place you're going to? You just look them up on the internet?
Yeah, it's the easiest way to find out exactly where they're at. And if they don't have an embassy, they'll have a consulate usually, or something like that. Some representative of the government should be there in pretty much every country you're going to go to.
Now, would you recommend every time I go to a foreign country just being in contact with the embassy?
Yes, 100%.
So even if I was going to go like France?
Yes.
Okay. And what am I going to tell them? Hey, I'm an American tourist and I'm coming over and chilling out?
Yeah, just say I'm going to be here, blah, 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 to blah, blah, blah. And, that's pretty much it. That way, at least if something happens, let's say in France, something might sound kind of obscure for that to happen, but let's say you're in a country and it just has riots across the whole country. I was in Uganda one time and the entire country rioted. and they were evacuating people and stuff. So if they're going to try to track people down later, they're going to know who are they got to track down.
Okay.
So if you're on their list, then obviously you're going to be one of the ones they're going to be looking for.
So I just call up the embassy, talk to whoever, and say, I am whatever. This is my name. This is where I'm going to be. This is how many people are in my party. Here's all our names. And we're going to be here from X date to X date. And they're just whatever they put on a record somewhere, and we're good to go.
Yeah, and then and make sure people at home know too, where you're going to be at, when you're going to be back. Like if you have a travel itinerary, what is that travel itinerary? You don't want to be posting on Facebook, directly, but like through an email should be fine. I mean, the NSA is going to know anyways what you're doing,
Sure.
especially if you're in a foreign country.
Okay. All right. Well, we got to take our last break, and when we come back, we're going to continue on this topic. And I want to talk a little bit about foreign disease and foreign kind of health threats and hygiene, and how to make sure that that doesn't wreck the rest of my life. So we will be back from our break shortly. You're listening to The Arms Room.
Veterans served us, now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsofnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help. Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552. or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets On Media Network.
All right, you're back on The Arms Room, and we've got Scott from GrayWolfSurvival.com. Scott's got a pretty significant background in the topic at hand, which is travel safety. We've talked about how to kind of travel safety, what to wear, how to act, how to figure out what to wear and how to act. We talked about contacting embassies. We talked a little bit about E&E and kind of maybe just touched very briefly on the psychology of why people get taken and don't resist. And the last thing I want to kind of round out the show with is hygiene, disease, and how to avoid bringing home a forever buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, water, everybody hears about that. Don't drink the water. I mean, and it's true. Don't drink the water. But remember also that ice is made out of water. So a lot of people make that particular mistake. They'll get a drink from a place and they'll get ice cubes in it. And then they wonder why they got sick. So the safest is usually to drink even I hate Coca-Cola and Pepsi because it's so bad for you, but it's actually not going to get you sick, at least. It's a sealed bottle. Water bottles, but also watch. We had a problem in one of the countries in Africa I was in where there was they were taking water bottles and refilling them and then just sealing them back up. So at the bottom there'd be 2 little nipple things from where they posted or poked the thing and re-injected the water, and it's just crap water. So everybody was thinking that it was real, and it really wasn't. So those kind of things, you obviously look for that little double nipple kind of thing there, but looking at the labels, sometimes they don't make the right labels or be misspellings and that kind of stuff too. But also if you go into it like a restaurant in some countries, remember they wash their glasses out of that same water too. So even if you do get it without ice or anything,
so you get a Coke in a cup where the cup was washed with the bad water.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've seen some different filters, and from a wilderness guy, right? I'm obviously a huge fan of filtration, and I know a lot about water filters and what they can do and what they can't do. Viruses is always the main problem for filters. In order to filter out most viruses, you got to have yourself a pretty serious filter.
Yeah.
And so, if I take most small handheld filters like, Life Straws or like Sawyer Minis, those are great filters, but whipping one of those things out in a restaurant in some foreign country and drinking out of the water is going to look kind of freakish, right? I've got this giant filtration straw.
That's a medical condition.
I've got a medical condition.
Tell them you have a medical condition.
It's called paranoia. Yeah. I don't want to crap my brains out. So there's a small straw filter I saw, and I don't remember the name of it now, but it looks like a straw, and it only filters like, I don't remember what it was, 25 gallons or something like that, and then it's done. But they're relatively cheap. They were like $10, $15, and you can take them overseas. And it looks just kind of like a normal straw, so it doesn't make you stand out from the crowd, right? Again, kind of that whole, we kind of want to blend in here. We don't want to look, we're not going to drink your nasty water. You don't want to necessarily look like that guy. But if we're dealing with viruses and things, those filters still aren't going to handle that. So, what's the right choice here?
Yeah, we get into that kind of detail. I'm not an expert in that, medical-ish kind of stuff.
Sure, but are we looking for more like sealed bottles, like only drink from sealed bottles kind of thing?
I would only drink from sealed bottle.
Okay.
If I'm in that kind of a country, if I'm in France or something like that, I'm not really worried about that.
Yeah,
but
sure.
If I'm in like say Egypt or someplace like that, I'm not drinking any African country at all.
Okay. So Africa, Middle East, how about like Oriental countries, from the Far East?
Even then, I wouldn't drink that water. Like when Thailand was awesome, and their medical system's actually fantastic because I did TVAs at the hospitals when I was down there. It was one of the things I did, the threat vulnerability assessments at the hospitals, and they're fantastic. They're right on par with us. Same equipment, same training, same everything. But I still wouldn't drink their water.
Okay. But I will eat their food cart food at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than grilled rat.
Yeah, or crickets.
It tastes like chicken.
I get pretty sick on some crickets or maybe the shots or whatever.
So what are some other things that you can do to avoid bringing home, like we just had that huge Ebola scare, right? That was a big scare. Everyone's going to get Ebola. We're all going to die. I can honestly say I was never really that concerned.
Unless you wear a gas mask, which then apparently it'll save you from Ebola.
So what
Stop speaking.
What are some of the other things that we can do? Because now we talked about water. Okay, we get that. Don't drink the water if you can avoid it. But what are some other things we can do? Like hygiene.
Yeah, keeping your hands clean is one thing. Like the hand sanitizer kind of stuff is better than nothing.
Yeah. Is there a better way to do it than that? Like I was walking around with a can of hand sanitizer and hand sanitize your hands every time you touch something in a foreign country or what?
But you have to be diligent about it. Every single time, and have those alcohol wipes. Like if you go in and you like your door handle in your hotel and those kind of things that you're going to be touching common. You kind of want to be a little bit of a hypochondriac when you do this kind of travel, but don't get overboard with it.
Sure. Is there any other way to help avoid bringing back viruses, diseases, things like that? What are some other good things?
Well, again, you got to do some research on the particular country you're going to. Like if you're going to some place that has malaria, obviously you want to look at taking maybe some malaria pills before you start going, Doxy or whatever. But it really depends on which country you're going to because each one presents different threats.
How about vaccinations? Is that something I need to worry about?
I would get. Yeah.
I know that sometimes when you travel to other places, you're required to have certain types of vaccinations, but there might be times where I'm not required to have those certain types of vaccinations? Is it, I mean, still just kind of doing the research on the area? And
yeah, and I don't really like taking medication just to take it, but some of these things are a pretty nasty bug, and you have to balance the threat of the vaccination doing damage to you to the threat of the bad bug doing damage to you. So, some of these things I would definitely get vaccinated for.
Would you carry things like, when you travel, do you carry any medications? I mean, you're kind of like me. You don't really like medications. I don't really take a lot of medications. But if I'm going to be dealing in a foreign country where I might get anything from diarrhea to vomiting to just a real bad stomach bug, and you carry stuff like Imodium AD or something like that, is that the kind of thing that you would say, hey, I'm going to this foreign country, there's a possibility I might get some kind of terrible stomach bug, and I need to take this little bit of medication with me in case that happens, so it doesn't just ruin my trip?
Yeah, I would take diarrhea medicine just so you don't get completely dehydrated in some country and then put yourself in a really bad situation where you could be hospitalized in another country, and then it gets really bad once you get that point. Also, like usually if I'm traveling a country like that, I'll have like sunflower seeds, like with the whole shell and everything, and eat the whole shell, because that'll actually help your body kind of clean out some of that stuff.
Really? So you eat the whole sunflower seed with the shell?
Pumpkin seed.
So you just crunch up the whole thing?
And with sunflower seeds, you can't eat very many of those things because they're rough.
Yeah.
But pumpkin seeds, you can just eat them all day long.
Okay. So carry pumpkin seeds, and that helps kind of clean out your intestines and stuff like that. Interesting. I didn't know that. All right. So that's like the major nugget for me right there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's pretty awesome, because that's an easy thing to take to a foreign country, and I'm sure that's going to be allowed in. And if it's not, and probably buy something like that or similar to it just about everywhere you go.
Yeah, roughage. They'll have some kind of seed.
Yeah, some kind of seed roughage that you can eat. All right.
Just grab a tree branch and just start
chewing on the bark. I'm trying to get rid of this diarrhea, eating this tree bark.
Just make sure it's not caught if you're in Africa, because you're going to be all
you get all jacked up.
Now, also with that diarrhea medicine, you don't want to take it immediately. You want to let your body kind of try to flush that whatever badness out. If you try to just cover up your symptoms and stuff, then if you stop the diarrhea, then your body can't clean it, and you can just stay sicker.
Right. So you need to allow, typically, like what I'll tell people from a wilderness perspective is you need to let a day happen, flush it, let your body flush as much of it out. It's going to be a really uncomfortable day, but
just stay hydrated.
Just stay hydrated and let that day happen. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, the next day, now you're going to start taking your medications to try to control it so that I don't just get severely dehydrated or, create other symptoms that can create other, infections and hygienic problems and stuff like that. Any other kind of general travel tips, Scott? Just anything at all that you can think of. Here's something we haven't covered that people really need to be thinking about, whether that's a piece of gear or equipment they should take, whether that's something they need to do to prepare, whether it's something they need to do while they're there. We've covered a lot of good topics, preparation beforehand, preparation and kind of being there and how to handle yourself, a little bit about how to, kind of deal with captivity and now a little bit about hygiene and things like that. Is there anything else you can think of off the top of your head?
Any country you go to, try to pick the first, the top language or two that's going to be there, and try to get like 20 words, like hi, how you doing, yes, no, please, thank you, those kind of things, to try to build rapport easily. Because sometimes even though they speak English in a lot of these countries as like their second or third language or whatever, just that you being able to talk to them in their language can go a long way. And now you're not just the traveler guy, you're the guy that you set yourself apart from all the other Americans that come down there. And now those guys are going to be a lot more likely to take care of you and to let you know what's going on and to help protect you if somebody decides to take advantage of you. You could take those people will take you to markets and you get local prices and things like that. All
right. So definitely learning at least, probably I would say really as much of the language as you could.
Yeah, but at least get the ones that'll give you a rapport. Like it drives me crazy with some of these language tapes, and they teach you things like flower pot. Like, when the hell are you ever going to use the word flower pot in conversation?
Right.
But it's please, thank you, yes, no, delicious, those kind of words, and 1 through 10. And also when you're traveling around, if you have a hotel, have it written on a piece of paper what your hotel address is in the local language, not in American or in English or whatever. so that if you're stuck out somewhere and the person you're talking to doesn't speak any English at all, and you get past, please, thank you, you hand them that and just say, I need to go here, have that written here, and then they'll know what you're talking about.
And you could probably have a hotel clerk who likely has that capability.
Yeah. Concierge,
write that down,
you know, that kind of stuff. You just have it written exactly that, and learn how to say it too, in case you lose the piece of paper. Just memorize that whatever. I mean, that's what we did when I was in Bangkok. We were up there for a little while, and then in Phuket, both of those places, we had a hotel that sentence memorized. I don't know how to say it anymore, but with all the numbers and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if we lose the paper, I can just walk up to somebody and say, I need to go to blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay.
And then at least you can get back to your hotel where you can make a better plan.
Yeah.
All right. So that's pretty solid advice. So GrayWolfSurvival.com. Let's kind of end with that. What is the blog? What is the purpose of the blog? How often do you post on it? What is the main topics of it? Obviously it kind of makes sense. People hear Gray Wolf Survival. Okay, that makes sense what it's going to be about. But man, there's so much bull crap out there.
Oh, I know.
How you know, I've enjoyed your blogs. There's a couple others that I'll read. I really like yours because it's got good information on. Again, I know it's coming from experience. So kind of tell us a little bit more about your blog and how active it is and the type of topics that you talk about.
Well, I started it when I was in Afghanistan because, you know, when you're laying there at night and hearing, you know, mortars and stuff come in and you're wondering whether you're going to be drug out of the building rubble, you know, the next morning and don't even realize that you just got hit. And my brain, after so many deployments, just it was kind of driving me crazy a bit. So I started writing on this blog because I was reading some of these like sites on survival and prepping and stuff, and it was crap. It was like everybody's writing the same crap and it's wrong crap. Like, where do you even get this information, you know? So I started writing my own stuff down there, and it was nice because it kept me busy at night. But I started also wanting to do a lot of the more outdoorsy kind of stuff, and I like emergency preparedness. I like being able to be like self-sufficient. I like to be able to start a fire in the woods and all that kind of stuff. I grew up in the woods, so a lot of the stuff I already knew anyways. But I figured I'd put it all together and make this blog. And so there's information on like typical wilderness survival. There's also preppery kind of stuff. I don't usually go off into the like deep end doomsday kind of stuff. Like I rarely write anything like that. The most recent article I wrote was actually probably the farthest out that I've ever written. And it was about what to do if there's like a total disaster, you know, like an EMP strike or a tornado hit like the whole area. You know, what do you do? Like find rally points and, you know, family communication plan. Because if you plan out the worst case scenario, it's a lot easier to fill in the blanks for something that's a lot less much of a problem, you know.
Well, and looking at, I just looked it up when you mentioned it's called Disaster, the first 9 things to do when shit hits the fan, SHTF, right? The acronym everyone always uses. And it's got like some really good points that people don't think about. Collecting intelligence on the current situation. If you read most other blogs, they're going to be like, load all your PMags with 30 rounds. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be step number 1, right?
Grab your backpack and head for the hills.
Grab your bug out bag and head for the hills. You've got collect intelligence on the current situation. I mean, this is the kind of like good stuff that you're going to find on Gray Wolf Survival that makes sense. Find out what kind of emergency am I dealing with? How's this going to affect me? How's this going to affect my daily life? How's this going to affect my family, my friends, my circle, right? What are we going to do here?
Yeah, because you don't want to bug out to the middle of this, you know, middle of the woods 50 miles away if all that happened was somebody hit the power pole down the street.
Well, what's that movie? It's a comedy with that Brendan Fraser and Christopher Walken. Man, what is that called? Blast from the Past.
Oh, yeah.
Where an airplane, they're worried about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah,
airplane crashes into their house, so the dad steals them in the bunker for 25 years or 30 years or whatever, and they come out thinking that the world's over and it's just like normal 1990s or whatever. But again, you know, a plane crashes on the house. The guy, you know, thinks it's a 5-alarm fire and runs down and seals his family in the bunker for 30 years, you know? And that's the kind of stuff that we typically see with, you know, I hate to say
the extreme
preppers.
Side.
I don't want to lock anyone into a group, but to say, you know, yeah, kind of the extremists of like, oh my gosh, it's all the end of the world. The Ebola virus and everyone's gearing up on. Meanwhile, life in the normal world continues as normal, right?
It's all about risk mitigation. You have to identify what the threats are and what what your vulnerabilities are to that threat. Typical military training that
Mhm.
everybody's beat into now, but it's the same stuff. I mean, you can't plan for the worst case and then leave the most likely things unattended. If you're spending all your time buying ammo and having water filters and that kind of stuff, and you don't have a spare tire in your car and you're stuck out in the middle of the desert, well, that was pretty stupid.
Yeah, you got all the ammo,
Yeah.
no tire. Right? So you can't make a tire out of ammo. Well, that's what like we'll always tell people about, when they're stocking up on ammo and precious metals and all this. It's like, I can't eat gold.
Well, and
You
that
know,
too. I mean,
Can't heat the house with ammo.
between now and the time that Nibiru or whatever the heck is going to happen, whatever. Some of these guys are pretty far out there with some of their outlandish theories. Between now and that day, you still have to survive.
Right.
You still should be focused on your finances, and your health. Running, exercise, eating healthy, because even if it never does happen, then you have a happier life, a better life, and everything.
You're still reaping the benefits of your preparation.
And if it does happen, you're healthier. You have more tools, you have more gear, you have more ammo, whatever. So it's good anyways. But you can't just live that doomsday is going to happen, because that's highly unlikely.
Well, Scott, I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us, man. It's always good to hear a voice of experience and a voice of reason when we're talking about things like travel safety and even toward the end there, a little bit of emergency preparedness. Make sure you check out Scott's blog, graywolfsurvival.com. Doesn't matter how you spell gray, it gets you there. graywolfsurvival.com. Check it out. Lots of great information on there. And next week, we're going to have our good friend John. Not this John, the different John.
No.
You can still be here.
Oh, okay.
I'll still
All
allow that.
All
But
right, thank you.
But the other John is going to be talking. He's been on the show before, talking to us about the evolution of combat gear, because he's
lumberjack blacksmith.
Our lumberjack blacksmith friend. He's he started his combat deployments in the beginning of the war and ended his combat deployments at the end of the war.
Yeah,
and so he
much.
really saw this massive shift in gear, and he's going to be talking to us based on his experiences, kind of how to survive life and death situations, and how he managed to pull it off, and just kind of how to get through daily life in general. So join us next week for that topic. Until then, stay aware, stay safe, and train hard. You've been listening to The Arms Room.